So I have a bit of a confession to make here. I actually went out and bought an OP-1 Field. And I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, so I thought that in today's video I would share my first impressions with the OP-1 Field after using it for about a month. So I am definitely not an OP-1 expert. Do not expect a super in-depth review with all the cool hidden tips and tricks for it. Instead, this is an average music producer's first month with it.
Verkligen. 020 22 10. Verkligen. Och nu har ni planterat nya träd. Och du har varit ihop med Ibbe i 3 månader.
What's your name? Julia. And you guys... Okej, jo.
Och han är liksom då...
på motorcykel. Han flyttar bilar bland annat. Vi ser små...
And right off the bat, I want to say that I didn't have the easiest start with the OP-1 Field. It was a bit like using the SP404 Mark II when I first got it. It really took some getting used to.
I want to be super clear. If I didn't decide that I would make it work, that I would really try, I would have thrown it out like the first week because I didn't get anywhere and I didn't see the appeal. I didn't see the magic in it. And I thought like, man, this was a waste of money, to be honest.
So I want to share some of those frustrations here with you today, but also how I overcame them and how I made the OP-1 kind of an instrument that worked for me and not against me. And ultimately, I want to ask the question whether or not I made a $2,000 mistake, because perhaps my conclusions in this video will be helpful to you. I also want to say a big thank you to DistroKid who sponsored today's video. And if I ever end up finishing any of the music that I made with the OP-1 Field, then I guess I will be uploading it to Spotify, Apple Music and other stores using DistroKid. And I think that you should be using DistroKid too. They let you upload unlimited amounts of music for about $23 a year, which is very cheap. And if you use my link in the description and go and check them out, you get a discount if you sign up. So what are you waiting here for? Go and check them out and upload some of those doll-less jams that you surely have finished. Why did I buy an OP-1 Field? Well, I have to come clean. I've actually never used an OP-1 before, but I have always been curious about it because it's a very controversial synth/workstation. A lot of people have been upset with Teenage Engineering about, for example, the increase in price, and a lot of people love to call it a hipster toy. And not to get ahead of myself, but maybe, just maybe, they're right to some extent. It does have a certain, I don't know, hipster vibe to it, but more about that later. And on the other hand, the OP-1 is also a beloved instrument that a lot of really talented musicians swear by, like real talk. While hardcore synth nerds might not love it, there's a ton of like super talented people that I know, some of the people with the most music output actually really love the OP-1. So maybe what the OP-1 is depends largely on who buys it. Some people might buy it because it's a cool looking Apple-esque piece of music fashion, I suppose. While others might buy it because they are musicians that want one of the best portable synths out there and they can actually make use of it. So where do I fit in? Well, I'm in somewhere in the middle, I guess. I bought it because I'm curious about it. I'm a synth nerd who just loves to understand what a synth is about, and I wanted to understand what all the fuss was about. And also I find the form factor and design really appealing, and I'm a sucker for great feats of engineering and design. And yeah, the OP-1 is, without a doubt, a really well-designed instrument. So if you don't know what the OP-1 is, basically it's a synth with different synth models, and it also has a drum section with different models as well. You can also load samples. So we got the synths, we got the drums, we also have the tape where everything's recorded, and there's also a basic mixer section with some basic master effects. I'm saying basic here because compared to, say, a workstation, something like Machina or MPC, you know, there's no comparison in terms of functions. Like, those devices just have a ton more effects and a ton more functionality. We have the control section here for the tape, so play, stop, we have record. We can move here. If we'll shift, we can move back and forth in the tape. There's also a cut and paste function that I will talk about later. But it's not just a synth and a drum machine and a recorder. There's also sampling capabilities. You can sample into it. You can sample also from the radio.
Till som lägst 13 grader och...
Or you could use the built-in microphone. It also sports a built-in battery, and I don't know exactly how long it lasts, but I will say that it's the longest lasting battery that I have in any of my devices. It's actually very, very impressive. I can have this turned on. I often forget to turn it off, and it just keeps on running. So yeah, very impressive. So let's talk about my first few days with it and the frustrations of working with digital tape. So the way I learn an instrument, especially if it has a sequencer, is I try and figure out a workflow for making a beat of some time. Not a complete song, but rather figuring out how I can lay down bass, drums, melody, and other elements quickly and do so with little frustration. So this is the first beat I think I ever made on it. Now, the first frustrating thing I came across was recording loops that didn't click at the start. You know how when the wave doesn't start at 0, it actually makes a click sound? And yeah, that happened a lot, and it made me super, super frustrated. Let's see if you can spot it. I don't know if you heard it, but at the end here, let me see if I can scroll forward. At the end here, there's a little click. And that's something that is annoying when you're working with audio or when you don't have detailed editing functionality. I couldn't even record a loop on it that didn't have clicks in it until I realized that, of course, Synergy Engineering had thought about this, and there's a workaround that's, well, it's pretty easy and it works actually surprisingly well. And let me show you here. To start making music, you select a reel. It's basically a project, and it has, I think, a limit of how many minutes that you can have in it. So I'm just gonna select one here. You can see the timeline. And the fun thing is we can, of course, if we want to, we can just go to an empty space here in this project, and we can set in a start an end point. And I want to show you what I talked about creating loops that doesn't click. So if we just hit record here, it starts recording. I think we're on track number 4. Yeah, it seems like that. And now if we want to record into it, we can go to the drum. We can just record, and it's recorded here into the tape. Now, if you do it this way, it's very easy that we get clicks and pops because we don't start perfectly at the start and we don't end perfectly at the end of the loop. So what we do is we turn on the metronome here. It's always nice to have that. We go into drum, find something we like. I think this will do. And now in tape, we just hold record. And when we hit a key, it starts recording. And now on top of this, we can add an arpeggio. There's also different sequencers here that you can choose from. You can have them active for the drums or the synth. So now we can go back here to the recorder, and we're still on the same track. So we're gonna overdub it, and we're turning down the recording level here, and now we have our little loop. So it's really not that complicated to get something going. Let me see if I can add some more sounds here, like a little bass or something. So while I overcame this first problem here, let's just say it was a very frustrating first few days because then this could be a real deal breaker for you. You record everything destructively to tape. Once recorded, there's no real going back. And there's no undo functionality, and this made me tear my hair out a few times when I messed up a recording. But then I learned that while there isn't a strict technical undo function, there is this cut out and paste function. Some say copy and paste, but that's not correct. You basically mark a selection of your beat and you cut it out you cut that track out, or the entirety, all of the tracks out, and then you can paste them back in. So it's not an undo function, it's a way not to tear your hair out when you've messed up a recording. So basically, you just set the loop pointers here. 1 and go over here, 2 and go back, and if you hit shift and up, we basically cut out that section, all of the tracks. You can also do it by just pressing up, and then there's the selected track, and then you just press down to paste it. And that way we can create a bit of an arrangement. So if we want, for example, just the synth here, we cut it out and we just paste it like this again. So now we actually have an intro like this. And then we go to track number 2 and we cut it, paste it down, and we go back here to this little intro section here and paste it. So now we have the little synth here as sort of an intro, if you will, and we can add more stuff to the other tracks or just overdub it. And as you can see, we now have a part here where the beat comes in.
Därför pågår just nu ett intensivt arbete med att begränsa spridningen av
We can
sjukdomen.
record the radio. I know it's a little cheesy, but yeah, why not?
Bekämpa det, begränsa och bekämpa.
And now we can start to add more elements to the beat. And again, if I want to add something more, I just first, I cut something out of the tape, I paste it back in, and then I record. Like in the end, like I'm not sure if this is that great, but there's something going on here, right? There's something that feels a bit alive, and I like that. I like that that is what OP-1 brings out of me, but more about that in the conclusions of the video. Now, let me just wrap up my thoughts about the copy and paste functionality here. Once you understand how to do the cutting and pasting, it really works. The only problem is you need to think about things in advance, and this can sometimes take you out of the creative moment, out of the flow of making music. And that's where an undo function would be better, because it would just let you press undo to undo whatever it was you recorded, instead of having to think about actively cutting something out, pasting it back in to record over it, and then have an option to redo it if you mess it up. But in the end, once I learned these two tricks, how to make a loop that doesn't get nasty clicks and pops, and understood the cut and paste function, it became a much smoother experience, and actually had a lot of fun with OP-1. So going into my second week, I was actually able to make more than just a 4-bar loop. I think that the tricky part when creating an arrangement on the OP-1 is doing transitions and making small changes to vary the beat. This is definitely difficult on the OP-1 because everything is audio. There's no MIDI editing really in the digital tape. So I get why many people finish their tracks that they make on the OP-1 in a DAW, but I guess that also goes for a lot of other hardware stuff like the Digitact, for example. After spending about a week or two with it, I started making a longer arrangement. Here you can see this is quite a long arrangement. I'm going to play you some parts of it and just kind of walk you through what I'm doing here. So we start off with this kind of intro. There isn't really a lot of bass, and then I bring in the radio and the bass. And then we have this like really, I don't know, gnarly, vibey lead sound. And then we'll go a bit more funky. Turning up the heat a bit here, adding more energy. To the difficult part of this video, where I critique this for being a hipster toy, because there are things that makes this synth feel a little bit toyish, and one thing in particular, it's the design of the synth section. Basically, you have multiple synth models to choose from, and they all make sounds in a different way. Now, the synth sounds great, don't get me wrong about that. The issue is the design of the graphical interface. Now, I get that you need to simplify things on a small screen, but the way they've done it makes me think it was more important that it looked cool than being truly functional. Like Electron menus are small, but they're really functional. And what I'm actually missing here from the graphics is just like a no-nonsense sort of UI where you can actually just understand what's going on. Like with the envelopes, for example, they make a lot of sense. They're just normal envelopes. But when it comes to editing the synths, there's a lot of like confusion what the parameters actually do. And I just wish it was a little bit more, I don't know, clean, I guess. And before I talk about whether or not the OP-1 Fields was a $2,000 mistake for me and give you some advice whether or not you should buy it, here's a word from today's sponsor. So DistroKid is a service that lets you upload your music to Spotify, iTunes and other relevant stores, and they have also launched a super accessible, really easy to use instant mastering service. This new mastering service is called Mixea, and it has a super simple to use interface. Anybody can use it. You just drop your music into it and you get one free master download if you just want to test it out, and then you have to subscribe. And it's really easy. Just drop the track in there, you make some adjustments to it, you can change the intensity, the volume of the track, and you can change the EQ from sort of brighter to warmer sounding. And I was actually pleasantly surprised about the results. It sounds pretty good actually. You can go and check out DistroKid, they are linked in the description, and if you use my link you get a discount and you also support the channel. So lastly in today's video, let's answer the $2,000 question. Did I make a mistake? Now, thankfully, I found my OP-1 field on a sale, so I got it a bit cheaper than 2,000 bucks. But you are likely to pay closer to 2 grand for it, and at that price, I think that most people, yeah, they shouldn't buy it. Like, it wouldn't make sense to most people, and let me explain why. If money isn't a problem, then OP-1 Field is one of the best, if not the best, portable synth that I know of. It's extremely well built, the design is beautiful, and the sound is actually very, very good. But if you, like most people, have to think about where you put your money, then I think there's just so many other synths out there that you could buy that are cheaper, unless portability is the most important thing to you. There are actually a few budget-friendly portable alternatives out there, and the SP404 Mark II would be one alternative. It doesn't have a synth engine, but it's really good for sampling and making beats on. And then we have the Sonicware sample track that has actually gotten a lot better with the updates that it has received, but also the Sonicware Lo-Fi 12. So it's nowhere near as powerful and feature-packed as the OP-1 Field, but it actually has this nice, I don't know, lo-fi vibe to it. It's fun to pull out when you're out and about. It's really nice as kind of this portable sampler, and you can make some pretty decent synth sounds on it as well. And if you're okay with a slightly larger portable device, then the MPC Live would be a go-to recommendation for me, because it's just a really solid portable workstation. Even though I'm not an MPC guy, I don't use MPCs that much, I do realize that it's actually a very powerful alternative, and it's also quite affordable, especially compared to the OP-1 Field. So, after weeks of frustration and testing, did I personally make a mistake? Now, I thought a lot about this. I could talk about how it's not gonna help me finish more music, for example, but then again, I think it's kind of magical thinking to think that gear will help you with that anyway. I could talk about the fun I've had with it, but frankly, a lot of the hardware stuff that I test out is actually really fun. That's why I like to test it. I could also talk about portability, because yeah, it's one of the most portable synths that I own, and it's really important to me that it's portable. I can take it with me wherever I go, and it's, you know, you can make some stuff that sounds really good with it on the fly. I could also talk about the design and how I love well-designed things. In the end, there's one main reason why it doesn't feel like a $2,000 mistake, and that is that the OP-1 Field actually pushes me to make better music. How? Well, in part because of the things that I've already had problems with. You see, the things that frustrated me the most is that I can't just endlessly edit what I record. I have to commit, and learning to trust your instinct when something feels just right is super important when you make music. I record, I listen, I try and feel what's going on with the music, and if it doesn't feel right, I re-record, and then I have to live with the results. And that is something that I think gets lost in this never-ending world of undos and redos where nothing is ever final. So the OP-1 Field, frustration and everything, is a keeper for me, and I will keep exploring it, but you should think hard before buying one, because in the end it's all about what it does for you, and yeah, you don't really need to buy it just because it's a cool piece of music tech. So that being said, yeah, hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.